Continuing Ezekiel Chapter 25, and again, I brought my two reference books here, my analog Wikipedia and my Who's Who and Where's Where in the Bible book for references. And you know, you can, everybody says, Wikipedia is so wonderful, you go online, you can find out anything. Yeah, but then if you need it for a reference, you have to find a printer and print it out. And most of today's computers aren't even hooked up to printers. So that's when this comes in awfully handy. You know? So, and actually, when I was checking up on today, I actually found out something, and even in this, found out something that I suspected with the Ammonites. Remember, we talked about the Ammonites, okay? And something that I suspected about the Ammonites, but it didn't say anything in either one of these about the Ammonites and how they are related to the Jews. They are related. They are cousins. You know, of some in their, when they go to ancestry.com, the Ammonites and the Moabites, which we will be talking about a little bit today, they're all related to the Jews. They're all related through Lot. Okay, they are both Ben-Ami and Moab were through this incestual relationship with Lot's daughters. You know, when they fled Sodom and Gomorrah, the girls thought, there's no men left in the region. They've all been destroyed, and they got Dad drunk and had a relationship with Dad, and they each had, so they Ben-Ami and Moab were cousins. Of course, Lot was also their father, and according to he was also their grandfather. I am my own yeah. Huh?
I guess he would be there.
He would be there, yeah. He's their father and grandfather. Yeah, exactly. Real weird. But anyway, so actually, we got down to finished verse 5 in Ezekiel chapter 25, telling them why, God through Ezekiel is telling them why the Ammonites are going to be destroyed. Okay, and why, verse 5, I will make Rabbah, that's city of Ammon, a stable for camels, and we talked about the turning Ammonites, the land of the Ammonites east of the Jordan River, turning them into a big stockyard. Okay, stable for camels, couching place for flocks, big stockyard. Okay, that's where we finished. And now start this week, verse 6, because thus saith the Lord God. Remember, last week, verse 3, thus saith the Lord, because thou saidst, aha, against my sanctuary. Well, verse 6, because thus saith the Lord God, because thou hast clapped thine hands and stamped with the feet, and this is the Osama bin Laden dance, that he did after, and that went viral on the internet when they filmed it, and that's one of those things that went viral, and he did this dance after 9/11. Look what we did. We did that. Okay, well, this is what the Ammonites are doing. Because thou hast clapped thine hands and stamped with the feet and rejoiced in heart with all thy despite against the land of Israel. Now the Moabites and the Ammonites all had, they were all, and like I said, they're cousins. They're related. Okay? And, they became Moab and Ben-Ammi, became ancestors of two nations that later fought Israel, Moab and Ammon. Both of those are in what is now Jordan, okay? And the descendants of Moab settled east of Israel in what is now part of Jordan. And, they didn't get very good land, the Moabites, neither did the Ammonites. Weren't very many livable places in the region. And so, they kind of got the Israelites got the land filled with milk and honey, okay? The Moabites and the Ammonites got the desert. And of course that, they're jealous of their cousins. So they fought. The Ammonites and the Moabites fought. And because, they rejoiced in their heart with all thy despite against the land of Israel, behold, therefore I will stretch out mine hand upon thee. And now there's, and I think Pastor mentioned this like Wednesday night, there are a couple of ways where the Lord stretches out his hand. Okay, there's the stretching out his hand in comfort and solace and aid. Okay, and there's the stretching out his hand, stretch out mine hand upon thee, in the if you will the fist of judgment and battle. Stretch out his hand and put his arms around us. When we're in pain and like that. But here, he's stretching out his hand and will deliver thee for a spoil to the heathen. Both the Ammonites and the Moabites, both were conquered by, if you will, the Assyrians and then the Babylonians, and both of them really ceased to exist as nations. And I mentioned this with the Ammonites last week. Okay? They both ceased to really exist as nations. They become good little Babylonians, and later good little Assyrians, good little Babylonians, and later then good little Persians, good little Greeks, whoever took them over. And eventually the Romans. Right? They've been conquered over and over and over, and they cease to be nations. And that's one thing that God said in the first 5 verses of chapter 25. Deliver it for the spoil to the heathen. And I will cut thee off from the people, and I will cause thee to perish out of the countries. Right? Yeah, they're going to die off. Nobody's going to be, there are, hey, Ruth was a Moabitess, remember? Talked about Ruth, but this was, ages ago. But Ruth is in the genealogy of Jesus, but she was a Moabitess, okay? And like I said, enemies of God, enemies of Israel. But I will cause thee to perish out of the countries. I will destroy thee, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Okay? Most of these little sections here, verse 5 ended with, ye shall know that I am the Lord. Verse 6, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. And then verse 8, now we move to Moab. Thus saith the Lord God, because that Moab and Mount Seir is kind of it's Mount Seir is in there, it's in that region, and both the Moabites and the Ammonites kind of shared a affinity with Mount Seir. Okay. And because that Moab and Seir do say, behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. Okay. Remember, that's the idea of, God warned Israel and the house of Judah that was going to happen. Okay. The heathen are going to look at you and say, neener, you're just as bad as we are. Okay? And hey, they do the same thing. Non-Christians do the same thing with us, with Christians today. Neener. Look at what you did. Okay? Look at what that Christian did. Look at what that very important Christian did. Boy, he said he was a Christian, right? Okay. Look at what he did. Yeah. And because of all this, I will destroy thee. Behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. Therefore, behold, I will open the side of Moab from the cities, from his cities which are on his frontiers. Okay, each nation they had their fenced cities. They had that they used for defense. They had their fortresses along the borders. They had all of their all of these a lot of the programs on the Science Channel. What on Earth program, where they get the satellite pictures from Earth, and they're finding all of these ancient cities, and they're seeing them with the satellite imagery and the LiDAR and all that sort of stuff, and the infrared and all this fantastic stuff that they're doing, and they're finding all of these things, all of these former towns, okay, that the archaeologists have no clue where they are, but the satellites are finding them, and they can see them from space. Okay, and here we've got on the side from the cities, from his cities which are on his frontiers. So there are Moabite cities on the frontiers of their border. Okay, and those the archaeologists are having wonderful fits there. Hey, look at what we found. Okay, and gee, we found something that was mentioned in the Bible that we thought, since we couldn't find it, that disproved the Bible. We can't find Nineveh, we can't find Sodom or Gomorrah, and with all these wonderful technology we've got today, they're finding all of that stuff. Gee, maybe the Bible is right. Okay. Anyway, the glory of the country, Beth Jeshemoth, Baal Meon. Okay. Here, these are some 3 times fast words. Say all these words 3 times fast. Beth Jeshemosh, Baal Meon, and Kiriathaim. Okay. Those cities. We have no clue where those cities are, but I'm sure those satellite images have found them. Okay. Unto the men of the east with the Ammonites, and will give them in possession, okay, that the Ammonites may not be remembered among the nations. And this is going to happen with Moab also, except Moab does get remembered, again, through Ruth. Okay. And may not be, and I will execute judgments upon Moab. just because you did those Osama bin Laden dances, you and the Ammonites, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Okay? That's the whole point of pretty much everything God does. Everything God is doing today is so that we shall know that I am the Lord. Okay? Thus saith the Lord God, because that Edom hath dealt against the house of Judah. Let's see, I believe Edom is let's see, Edom they're cousins also. Let me find Edom in here. Edom. Nah. Edom. Okay. And of course, the Edomites are descendants of Esau. Okay? Bowl of red stew. Esau traded his privileged rights and that as the family's first son, that earned him a nickname, Edom, meaning red. Okay? Name stuck. Land where Esau's descendants settled, south of the Dead Sea, became known as Edom. Okay? Again, they're all cousins. They're all related. Okay? Sandstone hills there, and much of the soil bear a reddish hue. That's interesting. And one-time capital of Edom was Petra. Okay, and of course we know Petra. One time it's a tourist attraction with massive rock carvings on the cliffs. And Edom refused to let the Hebrews pass through their land on the way to Canaan. Right? But God told the Hebrews, don't mess with them, not to bother them, since they were relatives. He had the same instructions for Moab too. Okay, don't bother them. You're related. You're cousins. So we come to, here we go. We've got Ammon, Moab, now Edom. Thus saith the Lord God, because that Edom hath dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and hath greatly offended, and revenged himself upon them. Right? Edom, the nation of Edom, God told Israel, don't mess with Edom. Okay? But Edom, I guess, must not have gotten that memo, because Edom messed with Israel. And again, Israel got the land filled with milk and honey, got that wonderful land, and guess everybody else, all these other nations, they got the desert to the east. And but hey, you can take desert and turn it into fruitful, productive land. And that's one thing, that's one thing that the Israelites did when they moved in to the land of Canaan. Okay, they took what was there, plus then they cultivated it, and Israel today is a productive, fruitful land. And there's areas in Jordan and east of the Jordan River, those have become productive, fruitful lands. And what is it? East of the Columbia River, here in our own Washington state, they took the water from behind the dams, ran coulee, behind the dams, and they turned eastern Washington into productive land. A lot of hay, corn, you name it. We grow it over there. And that's the same thing. Okay, well, Edom, again, they were greatly offended, and Edom greatly offends Edom took vengeance against Judah, jealousy, you name it, whatever it was, revenged himself upon them. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, I will also stretch out mine hand upon Edom. Okay? And again, another thing, we don't hear about too many Edomites. There's nobody around in the world today that I can. Any of you have any Edomite ancestors, or Moabite ancestors, or Ammonite ancestors? I do have about 2%, a little 2% of my DNA is Middle Eastern. I did one of those DNA things. 2% is Middle Eastern, so who knows? I might have tiny fraction of a percent of one of those, or tiny fraction of a percent of Persian or Greek, or anyway. But we don't hear any descendants of Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate. Okay? He's going to turn it back to a desert from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. These would be Edomite cities. And again, here's another case of who knows, except the satellites might have found them. Who knows where those cities are today? There might be a village there. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury. All of Ezekiel is about God's anger and fury against Israel and against Israel's enemies. Okay? And they shall know my vengeance, saith the Lord God. Okay? And that's where we'll stop this week with vengeance on the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Edomites. And